Juliana Marins. It's June 21st, 2024. The morning air over Lombok Island, Indonesia is clear, and the weather feels like it's going to be good. 26-year-old Brazilian tourist Juliana Marins has been looking forward to this for days. A trek up Mount Rinjani, the second highest volcano in the country. It's known for its sweeping views and challenging climb, and she's ready to take it on. She was not going alone. 5 other foreign tourists are in the group, along with a local guide who is familiar with the trails. The plan was straightforward. Follow the established route up toward the crater, take in the site, and head back down before dark. The kind of trip that's challenging, but doable. From a distance, Rinjani looks beautiful, with green slopes rising into the clouds. However, up close, it's a different story. The terrain is steep. The ground underfoot is loose volcanic sand that shifts and slides with every step. And the higher you go, faster the weather can turn against you. So the group set out in the morning. Hours into the climb, the group is nearing the crater. However, that's when things started to change. The air began to thin out and cool. Juliana starts feeling tired and asks for a quick break. The others are nearby, and the guide is just a few steps ahead as well. However, due to the small break Juliana took for a moment, she was a little apart from the rest of the group. That's when it happens. She moves to adjust her footing, and the sand gives way. She slips, and in seconds, she's gone over the edge. The fall is brutal. She drops roughly 150 meters down the cliffside before coming to rest on a rocky ledge. Somehow, she survives. People above can hear her calling for help. They can see her moving. She's conscious. There's a chance to save her. Rescue teams are alerted right away, but getting to her is almost impossible. Fog rolls in and out, the slope is nearly vertical, and every step threatens to send rescuers sliding down the same chute of sand and rock. The next day, June 22nd, drones are sent in to scout the area. One of them spots her, still alive, still 150 meters below the trail, but the weather keeps shutting down rescue attempts before they can reach her. Then, on June 23rd, everything changes. Juliana falls again. This time, she plummets another 450 meters. She's now roughly 600 meters below where she first slipped. On a mountain like Rinjani, that's almost unreachable. Then, on June 24th, a thermal drone picked up a heat signature near the crater wall. When rescuers finally got there, it was too late. Juliana was gone. Later, the autopsy showed that the second fall caused massive internal injuries and bone fracture. Once the internal bleeding started, she had maybe 20 minutes at max. Later, her body was carried off the mountain, taken to Bali Mandara Hospital, and on July 1st, flown home to Brazil. May her soul rest in peace. Chris McCandless. It's April 1992, and a 24-year-old named Chris McCandless steps out of a pickup truck onto a dirt road near the Stampede Trail in Alaska. Fresh out of college, he'd been chasing this moment for years. 2 years earlier, Chris had walked away from the life he grew up in. He left behind his family in Virginia, his car, and nearly all his possessions. He even donated his college fund, over $20,000, to charity, and set out to live what he called his Great Alaskan Odyssey. Inspired by writers like Jack London and Henry David Thoreau, he wanted to strip life down to the basics and see if he could survive on his own in the wild. The man who dropped him off that day, truck driver Jim Gallion, had a bad feeling from the start. Chris had a light backpack, a .22 rifle, a bag of rice, and a few books. Not much for the Alaskan backcountry. Gallion even offered to get him more supplies, but Chris just smiled and turned him down. As he walked away, his parting words were, "I'll call you if I make it out alive." Following the trail, Chris came across an old abandoned Fairbanks City bus, Bus 142, left behind by road crews years earlier. It became his shelter. At first, life out there seemed almost peaceful. He hunted small animals, foraged for plants, read for hours, and kept a journal. In those early weeks, his entries were hopeful, almost celebratory. But nature doesn't play favorites. By July, after over 100 days alone, Chris decided it was time to head back. When he reached the Teclanica River, the same one he had crossed in spring, it was now a roaring, ice-cold flood from the summer snowmelt. He couldn't get across. That day, his journal entry was just 3 words: trapped and wild. With no way out, he returned to the bus. Food became harder to find. His notes grew shorter, more desperate. At some point, he may have eaten wild plant seeds that, when moldy, can stop the body from absorbing nutrients. Even though he was still eating, his body was starved. By August, he was too weak to hunt or forage. His last journal entry read simply, "Beautiful blueberries." Sometime soon after, he died alone in Bus 142. 2 weeks later, a group of hunters came across the bus and found his body. His body was then taken for autopsy, and absolutely no signs of injury were found, which led everyone to believe that his cause of death was most probably starvation. Aaron Gibbons. It was a clear summer day in Hudson Bay when 31-year-old Aaron Gibbons took his 3 daughters out to Century Island. For generations, Inuit families had gone there to collect bird eggs, a tradition that connected them to their ancestors. But this island had another reputation too. It was polar bear territory, and in summer, when food was scarce, the bears got desperate. The girls wandered along the rocky shore, searching for nests, when everything changed in seconds. A starving polar bear appeared from the brush, its fur ragged, its frame thin, but its eyes locked on one of Aaron's daughters. It broke into a charge. Aaron had brought his rifle for protection, but it was still sitting in the boat. There was no time to get it. Instead, he ran straight toward the bear, putting himself between the bear and his children. What followed was complete chaos. The bear slammed into him with crushing force. Unarmed, Aaron fought back with everything he had, shouting at his daughters to get to safety. But the animal was too powerful. It mauled him with its claws, its jaws tearing into him. By the time others from a nearby boat managed to shoot the bear, it was too late. Aaron was gone, killed in front of the very children he had saved. The people who killed the bear later said he died a hero. Geraldine Largay. It's the summer of 2013. 66-year-old Geraldine Largay, inchworm to her fellow hikers, is stepping onto another section of the Appalachian Trail. A retired nurse from Tennessee, she's friendly, energetic, and chipping away at a lifelong goal, hiking big portions of the 2,200-mile trail. She's no stranger to the outdoors. Day hikes, camping trips, she's done plenty. But multiday day-to-day backpacking is still fairly new to her. This stretch through western Maine is supposed to be just another leg of the journey. Her husband George is her support crew, meeting her at planned points to hand over supplies and shuttle her to her next starting spot. It's a system they've used before. It's never failed them. On July 22nd, Geraldine sets out with a longtime hiking partner, but not long into the trip, her friend gets an urgent call, a family emergency, and has to head back. Geraldine decides to keep going solo. She's got a map, a compass, and a basic cell phone. What she doesn't have is good cell reception. This part of Maine is remote, and the forest can swallow a signal whole. Around midday, she steps off the trail for a quick bathroom break, something hikers do all the time. Usually it's just a few steps into the woods for privacy, then back out again. But here, the trees are thick, the ground uneven, and the landmarks all look the same. When she turns to head back, the trail is gone. At first, it's probably just annoying. A few steps this way, a few that way, and she'll spot it again. But she doesn't. The more she moves, the more turned around she becomes. That morning at 11:01, she sent a text to George, in some trouble. Got off trail to go to BR. Now lost. Can you call AMC to see if a trail maintainer can help me? Somewhere north of Woods Road. XOX. However, the message never went through. By the next afternoon, she tried again. Lost since yesterday. Off trail 3 or 4 miles. Call police for what to do PLS. XOX. That one didn't send either. However, when she didn't show up at their meeting point, George called it in. Search teams flooded the area, combing the woods, calling her name. At one point, rescuers passed within 100 yards of where she was camped, but the forest was so dense, they had no idea. Geraldine does everything she can to survive. She builds a small camp in a clearing, rations her food, and searches for edible plants. She makes signal fires, ties clothing to a branch to wave at aircraft, and even hikes to higher ground, hoping for a bar or two of cell service. But nothing worked. Throughout this turmoil, she also kept a journal. In it, she wrote about the weather, her supplies, and what she was going through. The first notes were steady and clear, but as the days passed, the handwriting weakened, lines wobbling as though the pen itself was getting tired. On August the 6th, she wrote what would become her final message. When you find my body, please call my husband George and my daughter Carrie. It will be the greatest kindness for them to know that I am dead and where you found me, no matter how many years from now. Please find it in your heart to mail the contents of this bag to one of them. She likely died on August 18th, 26 days after she first got lost. More than 2 years later, in October 2015, a forestry worker found her remains. She was found less than 3,000 feet from the trail. So close, yet impossibly far. Aaron Ralston. In April 2003, 27-year-old Aaron Ralston headed out for a weekend in Utah's Blue John Canyon. He wasn't new to this. He was an experienced mountaineer and canyoneer, someone who thrived on pushing himself to the limit. But before he left, he made one mistake, one that almost cost him his life. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. On the morning of April 26th, he parked his truck in the desert and started his solo descent into the narrow, twisting sandstone canyon. His pack was light, a bit of water, a couple of snacks, a cheap multi-tool, climbing gear, and a video camera. This was supposed to be a quick, challenging trip, nothing more. At one point, he bumped into 2 hikers who had lost their way. He guided them to a hidden pool, showing off his knowledge of the area, then continued deeper into the canyon, alone. That's when everything changed. While dropping into a tight slot, he stepped onto a boulder wedged between the canyon walls. As his weight shifted, the rock, weighing nearly 800 pounds, broke loose. It fell, slamming into him and pinning his right arm against the wall. He was stuck in a space barely wider than his own body, 65 feet above the canyon floor. The rock wasn't going anywhere, and neither was he. For the next 5 days, he tried everything. He chipped at the rock with his multi-tool, but the blade was too dull. He pushed, pulled, and twisted his body, but nothing worked. His food ran out, then his water. By the 4th day, he was drinking his own urine just to stay alive. In the shadows of that narrow canyon, he recorded messages to his family on his video camera. Final goodbyes, just in case. He hallucinated. He thought about his life, the people he loved, and then he realized there was only one way out. On the morning of May 1st, day 6, he made the decision. He was going to cut his own arm off. Using the torque of his trapped body, he snapped the bones in his forearm. Then, with his dull multi-tool, he began cutting through skin, muscle, tendon, and nerves. It took over an hour. The pain was beyond imagining, but the alternative was dying in that canyon. When it was done, he rappelled 65 feet down the wall, one-handed, and started hiking out. Several miles later, bleeding and weak, he came across a family on the trail. They gave him water, and rescuers arrived soon after. Aaron Ralston survived, but lost his right arm below the elbow. He later said the experience changed how he saw life, and now, no matter what, he always tells someone where he's going.